Hello, everyone. Welcome to SimpliWell, where we bring you simple methods for healthy living. Staying healthy during cold and flu season doesn't have to be confusing. We review the studies, simplify the science, and share practical tips you can use at home to help protect you and your family. Today, we're starting the year off right by breaking down what the research actually shows about staying well this season. And stay until the end because we'll share one simple strategy most people overlook that can make a big difference this season. So let's get started.
So today we're going to talk about how to approach this cold and flu season. We have new research and we're going to talk about some forgotten herbal remedies. So hopefully you guys learn a lot and hopefully this information is interesting and also makes you think about how you're approaching things. I always tell Jasmine sometimes we actually do things that actually make the symptoms or make whatever we have worse, thinking that we're doing something that's helping. So a lot of relearning, but let's talk about it.
All right. So how to approach this cold and flu season, new research and forgotten herbal remedies. All right. So let's go ahead and look at the first thing. So prevention is the gold standard. So here are a few things that are great practices to apply to your daily life to actually help prevent getting sick over the season.
Yeah. In our company, we stress these key elements of sleep, dressing appropriately. So if it's 30 degrees outside, put something on that keeps you warm. Having good stress management, continue to exercise and get fresh air and get sunlight, especially in the wintertime, and also drink plenty of water. There is a study, and we don't have it in this presentation, and I'll have to do it another time, but there actually is a study that links vitamin D deficiency and getting sick more often or having worse outcomes with disease. So vitamin D, we get it from the sun. That's the best way to get it. So make sure you're getting outside, you're exercising, and you're getting your vitamin D, and also you're eating the right foods and avoiding certain foods. So I guess our first article is going to be about some foods this ENT group found that we should avoid, right?
Okay.
Jasmine?
Yeah.
All right, so I'll let you tell us about these foods.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and look at the 5 foods to avoid for sinus issues. So one of the very first things is dairy products. Some of us may know that when you have a cold, the first thing that the doctor is or probably should tell you is to not have any dairy products because that causes a lot of congestion to your milks and cheeses and things like that. And so because of that, you can see the link that would create more mucus and would also worsen your cold symptoms.
Yeah, and it goes even past like when you get sick. I've actually had some patients and their kids have chronic allergies or chronic asthma. Like we know that dairy makes these things worse. So if you're someone who constantly gets sinus infections or has asthma or really bad allergies, you need to eliminate or get rid of dairy altogether. Dairy thickens your mucus, and a thick mucus is a breeding ground for toxins or allergens or bacteria infections. So get rid of it. It's not needed. There's a lot of great products out there. If you're interested in learning some non-dairy products that we recommend, Jasmine here, she's our nutrition consultant, so she'll be the one to kind of walk you through good dairy products. One that we like to use now is called nut cheese.
Nuts for cheese.
Nuts for cheese.
Yeah,
All right.
that's a new one.
And then there's Cocoa June. There's a good yogurt. Yogurt you need to get rid of too. And then there's really good alternative milks. So don't get attached to dairy. Jasmine, you do a project. Don't you say that dairy is a banned product in other countries, U.S. dairy?
Yeah, it is. If you've seen one of our previous videos, we talked about all the different foods in our country that are banned in several countries around us. And one of those products, unfortunately, is U.S. milk, just because of all of the hormones and things like that that are pumped through the system. But in addition to that, milk is not as healthy for us as we think. So yeah, there are multiple reasons to go to a non-dairy milk or milk alternative.
So yeah, go non-dairy. Don't get caught into the trap that you think you need milk for calcium. It's a fable, to be honest. We know apples give you more calcium. Sesame seeds give you more calcium. You can have green leafy vegetables, berries, oranges. You can get calcium from a lot of different sources, and often they actually have more calcium than dairy. It's a wise tale that dairy gives you calcium. Don't get caught into that trap. Try to find non-dairy products, especially if you struggle from those issues, and see how your life will change. All right, so what's the next one?
All right, so the next one is refined sugar. So sounds obvious, but for those who don't know, sugar does weaken your immune system. So that is definitely one of the top ones that we might want to reduce or completely avoid if we're trying not to get sick during the winter time or even while we're overcoming an illness.
That's right. Yeah. So we know in certain studies, and they've measured white blood cells, refined sugar intake. And they actually saw that the more refined sugar you have, the lower your white blood cell count. And you want your white blood cells to be there if you get sick. This is another reason why you want to avoid taking a steroid every time you get sick. It pulls the white blood cells out of the bloodstream where they're useful and puts them up in spaces where they're not used as well.
Oh, wow.
And then the steroids also cause a lot of other problems like weight gain and sugar intolerance, increase your blood sugar, which also leads to you getting sick more often. So a lot of times people go to certain facilities and they get steroids every time they have a sinus or a cold or something going on. It's really one of the worst things you could ever do for someone who's sick. Unless they really need a steroid, you don't give them a steroid. Like Jasmine was saying, inflammation is linked to refined sugar, increased swelling of your sinuses. So imagine you have dairy and you have sugar, and then you have chronic sinus infections, right? And then you say, hey, I'm just prone to sinus infections. They happen every time of this year. And that time of the year is the holidays. We're having cake and ice cream, 3 times a day. So let's really focus on this dietary thing. There are reasons why the body is reacting a certain way. We don't need to fall into the trap that we're programmed to fail. We can find out what's wrong and fix it. So reduce the refined sugar. What are some good sugar alternatives?
So some good alternatives would be definitely honey. You have agave and maple syrup. Those are the top 3 natural sugars that would be better to replace your refined sugar. And then there's also sugar in the raw if you need to put that in your cooking and things like that. But all the other ones you can put in your cooking as well. So those are some great alternatives. So honey, agave, and maple syrup.
Yeah, in our house, we primarily use honey and agave.
Yeah.
And you want to eliminate it. I mean, sugar, any type of sugar can be harmful. So we're not advocating you go and put a lot of sugar in everything. If you're going to use a sugar, try to use a whole food sugar. Don't use refined sugar. Refined sugar is an isolate of the sugar cane. So it's really bad for you. One of the worst things that we could actually introduce into our diet, and it's in a lot of things. Don't get caught up into eating that stuff.
Yeah, in the future, we're going to talk about isolates one day too and how that impacts our health.
Yes.
All right. So the next thing is any kind of chocolate. Now, the reason why they're bringing up chocolate is because of the refined sugar that is in chocolate. So it kind of connects to the previous one of avoiding sugar. Definitely don't want to be eating chocolate while you're sick, sweets while you're sick.
Oh, yeah. A lot of this chocolate, especially the ones everyone likes to buy, Hershey's, Reese's, I can't even think of all these ones. Any popular chocolate that Snickers,
yeah.
They have 2 things that'll work for you. They have both refined sugar and they have dairy in them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, there's natural chocolate and cacao, which actually has been shown to have some health benefits. But a lot of times what we do is we add sugar and milk to chocolate and make it unhealthy. So if you're going to do chocolate, there's other forms that you can get. You can do some that are made with dates. There's really a lot of good brands or date chocolate, or there's a good brand called Blue Stripes where it's a whole food kind of chocolate where they use everything that's in the cacao plant. Or you could just use carob if you don't want to use chocolate. Just make sure you don't add sugar to the carob. You're doing the exact same thing. Try to keep it very natural. And if you're going to sweeten the chocolate, sweeten it with something that's natural like dates. So chocolate sometimes gets a bad name, but it's usually the thing for you add to chocolate that makes it bad.
Yeah. Right, so the next thing on our list is foods that contain histamine. So these would be things like meats and cheeses. Those are also some foods to avoid.
Yeah. I mean, we promote a whole food, plant-based diet. So we tell people to avoid cheese and meat. And they say processed meat, but it's really all meat. Meat and cheese have histamine. Histamine increase your levels, will increase inflammation and sensitivity in your sinuses, will lead you to have more sinus issues and more reactive issues throughout the year. So if you really are interested in getting rid of those recurrent sinus infections and really bad allergies, get rid of the cheese and the meat. One testimony I have is I did this. I actually got rid of cheese and my asthma and my sinus symptoms and allergies got significantly better. So I'm talking from experience. It really does work. Cheese has something called the casein protein, very inflammatory protein, very, very inflammatory. Cheese has the most of it in it. Then you have things like milk and yogurt. They also have the casein protein. And so if you're eating this protein all the time, you're going to just be constantly in inflammation and Our goal in SimpliWell is to get you away from the inflammation and back onto eating healthy. So yeah, so avoid the histamine-containing foods. We're going to talk a little bit later about antihistamines. And I want you guys to pay attention to that because we have some information for you about antihistamines as well. One thing I will say, it's always better to just avoid the thing that's causing the issue than to do something that causes the issue, then try to take something that prevents the thing that you're causing. That's not the healthiest way to go about life. So we're going to talk about it. What's the last one?
All right, so this was very interesting. It's glutinous foods, and this is not something that you typically hear a lot. So, Dr. Thomas, can you explain to us why they're mentioning glutinous foods?
Yeah, so gluten in general has gotten a bad rap as well. Now, if you ever come see me as a patient, you'll learn something interesting about my idea behind gluten. I don't believe gluten is this harmful substance that everyone should be avoiding. In the US, we tend to have very contaminated wheat crops, and our gluten is filled with chemicals and pesticides, and also our wheat is hybridized. So it is basically giving you a gluten max shot when you eat the bread that America grows. Funny enough, when you leave America, go to Europe or Africa or the Caribbean, you eat their bread and you have a gluten allergy, you often will not have any trouble eating their bread. So tell me, why is this not talked about more? Clearly, it's not gluten. It's something else that's in the bread. So we talked about the hybridization of gluten, pesticides. The other thing that we find a lot of in bread is all these additional ingredients. I make bread at home. Bread only has very few ingredients: water, salt, yeast, flour, maybe some olive oil every once in a while, maybe a little bit of honey or sugar every once in a while. But bread does not have a paragraph of ingredients. And a lot of times people eat breads of this paragraph of ingredients, blame it on gluten, when it's really probably one of those other ingredients that are in the bread. So if you're going to eat bread, the type of bread we recommend is homemade sourdough bread, homemade bread in general. We want to do what we call a high hydration type of bread. So this is bread that has the holes in it. If you have a gluten sensitivity, sourdough bread and high hydration bread, you'll be able to tolerate much better. I think my wife can talk to you about that a little bit, right? The high hydration bread, the loaf I make at home.
Yeah, the bread is delicious, and I never have any problems with it. But the moment that I try some random bread out that has a lot of preservatives and things like that, my stomach is not liking it at all. So I can definitely say that having a bread at home is so much better and so much more enjoyable. And so I guess because of the gluten and everything, it's not necessarily the gluten that's causing people to have a stuffy nose then?
Yeah, it's not the organic type of gluten. It's the other ingredients that are in the bread that are causing inflammation, that are leading sinus congestion. And so don't get bogged down on not eating bread. You want to get really focused on those ingredients to make sure you don't eat bad bread, because there is bad bread out there. When we went to Europe, Jasmine didn't have any trouble eating the bread over there.
Nope, not once.
And we had pizza, we had pasta, we had bread from the table.
Sandwiches.
It was perfectly fine. You come to America, you go to eat, and you can't eat the bread. So it's not the bread.
It's like Russian roulette. I never know what I'm going to get.
Yes, it is the bread, but it's how we process our bread that's making it bad. It's not just gluten. We need to get away from calling everything a gluten problem. I think that was a good summary. You want to go to the next slide? All right. Now, we told you guys this is going to be new information. A lot of times, don't get attached. Don't fall in love with these medications or these treatments. We have a lot of good evidence showing what we should and shouldn't do. All right, so tell me what this one says.
All right, so this one is avoid cold medicine and oral phenyl. Okay,
avoid cold medicine. They don't want to say it by name.
I'm very familiar with Sudafed.
Avoid Sudafed. All right, we'll keep it simple. Yeah. What's a cold medicine? Do you know what cold medicines are?
Like scientifically, or
no, just like what's some names?
I mean, Sudafed was definitely one of them. I think NyQuil.
NyQuil.
Yeah, those were some of the ones I took growing up.
Robitussin, Mucinex.
Yep.
All right, so these are cold medicines. Let's go to the study. All right, boom. The use and efficacy of oral phenylphrine versus placebo, treating nasal congestion over the years on adults. So before anyone, this is a study done by the NIH. All right, this is not some random person's opinion online. This is not some random wise tale. This is a study that was done. It was backed by the FDA, but the NIH did the study. Let's look into this. So they looked into the effectiveness of phenylphrine, Sudafed. Look what they found. In summary, this systematic review indicates that oral phenephrine is not significantly more effective than a placebo in eliminating nasal congestion in dogs. Clinicians should explore alternative treatment options, considering the abuse limitations. This is what they came to the conclusion of. We'll have the conclusion in the slides. But let's talk about this. Now, phenephrine, or Sudafed, the main ingredient Sudafed, is located in majority of cold medications. It is the decongestant portion of it, okay? It is the thing that people like when they say, I have a runny nose and I took Sudafed and dried it up. And some people will call and they'll say, oh yeah, I have a runny nose, but I've been taking this and they're just drying it all up. So we're finding that doing that to your body when you're sick is one of the worst things you could do. All right, not only is it ineffective in helping the nasal congestion because it causes rebound congestion, but the other thing it does is it actually causes inflammation of your sinuses. So it actually can trigger a bacterial sinus infection with continued use. So it's literally one of the worst things you could do if you have a cold. And I'm going to talk a little bit further about how you actually should approach colds as we go through these slides. But the first thing we need to do when we get sick is not overreact and take over-the-counter medications. That is the very first thing. We know that for one, they're ineffective, but for two, they actually could cause worsening symptoms. So you're feeding into the fire when you take these medicines. So avoid them. Avoid the over-the-counter medicines. People call me a lot. I do telemedicine, I do our company, and they call me a lot and they'll say, oh, Thomas, I've had this congestion for 10 days. I've been taking Mucinex, Sudafed, and Dayquil routinely, and it's not better.
They're loading up.
They tell me it's not better.
Yeah.
And I tell them, yeah, it wouldn't be better. It would be worse because it makes it worse. So stop doing that. So when you get sick, don't run to over-the-counter medicines. All right. The NIH says do something different. And that's what we like to tell people. Do something different. Don't do the same thing. Back in the day, I asked my parents about what was the medicines that they took. And they took a medicine called 3-6s. Now, if you look into the parents of some of the drugs we use today, that's one of the parents of those drugs. And I'm not interested in taking a medicine called 3-6s. Okay, yeah. So let's go to the next article.
All right, so you're gonna have to help me with this one.
Antihistamines. Avoid antihistamines.
Antihistamines. Thank you. Avoid antihistamines. All right.
So remember we talked earlier here about histamine-containing foods, right?
Right.
Antihistamines would be something that would block histamine. Antihistamine goes against histamine. All right. So we learned that cheese and meat, or dairy and meat, increase histamine in your body, right?
Right.
All right. So we know dairy and meat increase histamine in the body.
Yes.
All right. A lot of times people, when they get these allergies or they get sick, they'll run to Benadryl or Claritin D or Zyrtec, and they'll take these things around the clock all throughout the year, all throughout their life, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. What is the effect of taking these medicines around the clock? So they did a study on Benadryl, and they saw that it was actually linked to increased dementia risk. Wow. So let me ask you a question. Would you rather avoid cheese and dairy if you know that's causing you problems and not have dementia, or have cheese and dairy and then take an antihistamine for your entire life and then get dementia?
I'd rather avoid the foods that could cause me dementia.
Okay, all right. The thing about it is we can't get attached to foods. There's a lot of good tasting foods. And really in our diet, it's really just eliminating a few foods. When you actually learn how many foods are out there, there's really not that many foods that you're actually eliminating when you do a plant-based diet. But if you know something is causing a problem, and then you're doing something that could actually cause a worsening problem, we need to stop both of them. So stop the histamine-containing foods and stop the antihistamines. Don't take them around the clock. It's one of the worst things. It's literally one of the worst things you can do to your body. Here's the study here. Common anticholinergic drugs like Benadryl linked to increased dementia risk. And so, like I said, all the studies are going to be in the presentation. You'll be able to take a look at them. But these anticholinergic drugs, they block acetylcholine, substance transmission messages in the nervous system. So if you're blocking something that works in the nervous system, you're going to have problems. In the brain, acetylcholine is involved in learning and memory. Learning and memory, and you're blocking that neuron from being transmitted through the brain. So you're going to have problems of learning and memory. If you're blocking something that's helping with learning and memory, you're going to have troubles with that. Yeah. All right. So we just need to be careful, like avoid that. Here's the big study they did here. When the researchers examined the use of anticholinergic drugs, they found that people who used these drugs are more likely to have developed dementia as those who didn't use them. Moreover, dementia risk increased along with the cumulative dose. So the more you take it, the more chances that you're going to actually have dementia. Taking anticholinergic for the equivalent of 3 years or more was associated with a 54% higher dementia risk than taking the same dose for 3 months or less.
That's crazy.
54%. So, listen, we just like to tell people the truth, right?
Oh my goodness.
Avoid antihistamine. I had really bad allergies growing up. Thankfully, I was not someone who ran to antihistamines. But I do remember being in college, taking Benadryl every once in a while. And the way you feel after you take Benadryl, like now you fall asleep immediately, you feel a little drowsy. There clearly is something that is under the body that probably shouldn't be happening. So stay away from these drugs. Benadryl, Claritin, Zyrtec, Allegra, Xyzal, anticholinergic drugs, avoid them. There's also medications that are anticholinergic. That's another presentation. We can go through that another time. Oh, interesting. We know this effect is bad. And we actually have a list of drugs that we don't give to people who are elderly, all anticholinergic. Why?
Wow.
Because we know it affects their memory and their learning.
That's so interesting that that's something that they tell older people to avoid, but yet they're not proactive in telling people who are younger to not take it.
Exactly. It's very interesting. Very interesting.
I guess we'll leave it there.
All right. So what's this?
All right. So the whole goal in everything that we talk about is we want to work with the systems and not against the systems.
Exactly.
So what does that mean? Because we don't like these symptoms. So what does this mean for us?
All right. So this is kind of the slogan of the whole presentation. Work with the symptoms, not against them. So if you have a runny nose, do not run to take a medicine that prevents the nose from running. If you have a cough, don't try to stop the cough immediately.
Embrace the runny nose. Embrace the cough.
Assist the body in getting rid of the runny nose. There are certain things you can take that will decrease the symptoms, but you're assisting your body in getting rid of the runny nose. You're just not stopping things abruptly. For instance, asthmatics, when they have an asthma flare, they cough. A lot of times asthmatics will call me and then they want a cough medicine. Literally one of the worst things you could do for an asthmatic is block their cough when the cough is saving them. The cough keeps their lower lungs open. So why would I block your cough? No, I'm going to give you something that's going to help that cough go away by assisting the body's process in getting rid of the cough. But your body to get rid of the symptom, not you to block it immediately. That symptom may be saving you. Same thing for fever. People get a fever and they block the fever immediately. We know there are several studies that show that actually running a fever, when you run a fever, you get better faster. There's ICU studies. There's actually having a fever heals you. And it makes sense because your body's getting heated up. It's going to kill off the microbes that are causing you harm. But we go and run and block it immediately. So a lot of times we just do things that are harming ourselves, wondering why we're always sick and why we're not getting better when we get sick. We need to stop doing that.
So I guess in summary, instead of seeing symptoms as our enemies, we should see them as our friends. It's the body telling us what's happening in the body, not necessarily something that we need to try and get rid of itself.
Exactly. So there are certain symptoms that would be more harmful, like shortness of breath or certain things. So you do need to address that.
Right.
But most of the symptoms that people have, cough, runny nose, congestion, we just need to learn how to assist the body in helping that system get rid of whatever problem is underlying that system instead of just focusing on symptoms. When you try to approach something holistically, the whole body's health. All right, so if you have congestion, we found several things that cause congestion. Why don't we stop those things that cause congestion and see if the congestion goes away? Instead of continuing the things that cause congestion and take something that stops congestion, which causes the congestion to build up more, which causes you to get a bacterial infection, to be an antibiotic, and then that causes you to be kind of in this constant cycle because you're destroying your body's microbiome for no reason. You're not addressing the root cause. So, you're working with the body by addressing the root causes. The symptoms will eventually go away if you just get to the root cause of why they're there. So we love herbal remedies. Funny enough, our idea of this talk came from an article from a reputable body. In their breakdown, they said, beware of herbal remedies. And we're like, why? Herbal remedies work really good. They're very safe, and they've been used for thousands of years. Drugs have been used for 100 years. We've been using these drugs. Herbal remedies have always been used. They work really good. So use the herbal remedies. That's the reason why our talk is called How to Approach This Cold and Flu Season, New Research and Forgotten Herbal Remedies. These things have always worked. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We don't need to pull out isolates from them. The whole foods work just good. Some of them we'll talk about would be, what was that? I thought I had one about honey. Oh, well, I guess right there. Honey is excellent for the cough, right?
Yeah. No, I would definitely say it's very soothing.
It's not an herb, but it's a natural remedy. Okay. So
Yeah, it's natural remedy.
Mullein is excellent for disease. Ginger, garlic, elderberry, vitamin C, zinc. I think one year, didn't you have like green smoothies every day and you were better?
Yeah, there was a year where I was more vigilant in having smoothies continuously. And I actually was able to avoid getting sick all winter. And I was shocked because that was one of the first times I think in my whole entire life I did not get a cold that whole winter season. And then also when I was sick, I had the green smoothies and I also made other concoctions that had garlic and onion and grapefruit and oranges. And it sounds like a really odd mix, but it helped me through the process not feel as bad and yeah, just help my body, assist the body in getting better.
Yeah, I mean, we're Christian, and there's a really cool verse that says, "The leaves are for the healing of the nations." The leaves, herbal teas, these things actually do help. And so don't get caught up in the trap that you should not be using herbal remedies when they've been working for thousands of years. They work just fine. Some of the teas we like to use, there's one called Throat Coat, Breathe Easy.
The brand is called Traditional Medicinal. It's a really great tea brand to go to, and you can find it in most stores.
So use the herbal remedies. Make sure you're eating well. Smoothies work really good for healing you. These things work well. And I like to tell everyone, do not mix herbal remedies with medications because herbal remedies assist the body in getting better. Medications block symptoms and they will clash. So don't mix them. Just do the just do the herbal remedies.
Yeah. All right, let's see what our next one is. Antibiotics aren't for colds. Whew, man, it's a big one.
Okay. All right. This is one of the pet peeves. At least I have. Hopefully, other doctors have the same pet peeve. Let's look at this really fast. Real fast. Before we get into antibiotics, this is something about garlic. It says garlic organosulfur compounds exhibit strong antibacterial activity against a wide variety of bacteria, including multi-drug resistant strands. So they did a whole study and they found that garlic is an antibiotic. So before you call the doctor, take some garlic. All right. There's another one we're going to talk about at the end, but there's actually some really good natural remedies that you can use to actually help to fight off infection. But if it gets bad, call a doctor. So here's mullein. Mullein also been found antibacterial activity was observed with Klebsiella pneumonia, Staphylococcus aureus, Staphylococcus mitis, and E. coli. Antibacterial activity was observed with these bacteria species here. So mullein, which is an herb, is also good when you have a cold. It helps to get rid of congestion and also has antibacterial properties.
Excellent.
Excellent. Yeah. There's a lot of them here. Look at this.
It's a main staple in our house.
Main staple. Mullein. Use the mullein. There's something called Mullein X. I need to get paid for these products, but yes, there's really good things. All right, so let's talk about honey. Honey was superior to usual care for the improvement of symptoms of upper respiratory tract infections. It provides a widely available and cheap alternative to antibiotics. Honey could help efforts to slow the spread of antimicrobial resistance. But further high-quality placebo-controlled studies are needed. Blah, 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 blah. Honey works. Okay? We know honey works. This is from PubMed. Effectiveness of honey for symptomatic relief of respiratory tract infections.
And I know this is not as related to respiratory, but didn't you say that doctors use honey in the hospital?
Yeah. So when I did the wound care rotation, we actually used a honey to help with wound repair. Wow. So we know honey works.
That's amazing. Yeah.
All right. So back to where we are. Antibiotics aren't for colds. This is one of my pet peeves. I have a lot of people call in and then they have a cold. I woke up yesterday, runny nose. I think I need an antibiotic. And then they hear the bad news from me. No. And then they get mad. But, they should get happy. They should be happy. Antibiotics are honestly one of the worst things you can do to your body, especially on a consistent basis. You don't want to take an antibiotic. If you have a cold, you should be happy. You should treat it as a cold. If you need an antibiotic, of course, we'll give it to you as doctors. But oftentimes you don't need an antibiotic. So don't run to antibiotics every time you get sick. One of the worst things we do to our health. Let me show you a study here. The impact of antibiotics on the human microbiome and consequences of host health.
Antibiotic resistance is a global crisis, and the increased use of antibiotics over the time warrants investigation into its effects on microbiome and health. In this review, we discuss the adverse effects of antibiotics on the gut microbiota and the host health and suggest alternative approaches to antibiotic use.
All right. So antibiotics are bad. They destroy your microbiome and they ultimately destroy your overall health. So is this something you want to take 3 times a year for sinus congestion that could be prevented if you just stop eating dairy, and meat and got off the Dayquil, NyQuil, Sudafed, and antihistamine? I mean, just ask yourself these questions. Is it something you want to take all the time? Let me just show you the conclusion real fast. You guys can read all these articles for yourself. If you have any interesting insight, please share it in the comments. Basically, they said this review has summarized the importance of the gut microbiota in host metabolism and immune functions such as immunity development. So listen to this. Your gut microbiota actually helps with your immunity. Basically, it helps to prevent you from getting sick. All right. So if you're taking an antibiotic that's destroying your factory that helps you stay healthy, how can you ever be healthy? And so if you're constantly taking an antibiotic throughout the year, your body can never actually learn to be healthy because you're destroying that capability by taking antibiotics. All right. This leads to colonization resistance, and then you have cell signaling. Look at this. All this stuff the gut microbiota does: immunity development, colonization resistance, cell signaling. It helps with advanced omics technology. Complex interactions between host and microbiota are now becoming clear. Antibiotics disrupt the microbiome balance, and hence the networking within the bacterial community and that with the host. The resulting resistant bacteria make clinical treatment difficult. Right. So, in conclusion, on the antibiotics, because I don't want to be a dead horse, but don't try to get ahead of a cold. People say, "Oh, I'm just trying to get ahead of it." No, don't try to get ahead of a cold. Try to implement those other strategies first and let your body get rid of the infection. Do not rely on an antibiotic to get you better, because in the long run, you're setting yourself up to always be sick. Antibiotics are not your friend. Use them when you need to, but it's not something you should be taking every year, and definitely not several times a year. It should not be used in that way. Remember, it takes time to get over a cold, right? I tell people 3 to 7 days. You're going to be sick for 3 to 7 days. There's nothing you can do that's going to prevent the 3 to 7 day course of a cold. A lot of times people get antibiotics. Antibiotics is 5 days to 7 days. They take it on day 1 and they get better on day 7. They think the antibiotic did something. No, that was your body getting rid of the cold. In the 3 to 7 days, it always gets rid of the cold.
Yeah, and I will say that when I was getting colds when I was younger, it was always like 7 days just clogged up and stuffy and everything like that. But I feel like I've seen in my life now, once I've changed my diet and I've changed how I approached my wellness journey, that my sickness either like maybe a little bit shorter or it's a lot easier to manage. I don't feel actually as horrible when I do get a cold because of that. So yeah,
that's good. Yeah, I would agree. I mean, when you have a healthy lifestyle and a healthy diet, for one, you don't get sick as often, and then when you do get sick, you just get over it a lot quicker. So that's why all those other steps that we talked about earlier are so important.
And I remember actually where one time I was sick and we actually got to walk the beach just to have some fresh air. And I guess it was something about the salt in the air and everything too. I felt like I could breathe so well and actually felt like I was good. Like it was amazing.
Simple things, those called negative ions. That's like forest bathing, sea bathing. That's another study, but it also helps you get better. It does. So we went through kind of the basics here. Now, unfortunately, a lot of people are hearing this information later in life when they've already done a lot of these things that actually have disrupted the microbiome, limited their body's own immune system from functioning as well. So you do need to know when to seek medical care. All right. Now, a lot of times you'll call me and I'll give you medical care and I'll just give you a better way to do the natural treatment that you're already doing. If there is some really bad symptom, of course we'll treat you. But often a lot of these symptoms can be treated with just the natural home remedies. But like I said, we want to make sure that you're safe, and so we're going to treat you appropriately. So when things are needed, they'll be given, but oftentimes they're just not needed. So they don't need to be given. Now you'll do much better not taking them.
All right. Now here's what we've been waiting for. The one thing that a lot of people tend to overlook when it comes to staying well for the season. And it is the benefits of oregano oil. This is another item in our household that has become a staple for us.
Oh, yeah, it's expensive. Right?
Is it? I actually don't remember how it, but it's
$20. A little same bottle was like $20.
Oh yeah. It is about $20, but it's worth having, and it lasts a little while.
It does. It does. Yeah. So because you only need a little bit. So oregano oil is one of the best herbal remedies for treating your diseases. One of the best. This is not just me saying this. I have articles. All right. NIH, There's a lot of other articles you can find online. But we're finding that oregano oil actually has better antibacterial properties than a lot of known antibiotics that we use a lot. Right, so let me, this is a wound care one that they did here, but let's just get down to the meat of it. Like I said, articles in the presentation, you guys can always look it up for yourself and review it. But this is not an article that I wrote. This is straight from the NIH. All right. So we reported here the effectiveness of oregano oil against a panel of multi-drug-resistant bacteria isolated from combating causalities and demonstrated for the first time efficacy of oregano oil for the treatment of burn infections in mice. The study serves as an initial effort to the pursuit of a novel therapeutic option for wound care. Yeah, the therapeutic option that's novel is actually oregano oil. We don't need to isolate it, okay? We have it, right? We don't have to get too complicated. So this is something that's really cool I found. Oregano oil did not adversely affect human keratinocytes and was safe when administered orally. So basically, not only was it antibacterial, but it also didn't show the bad side effects that drugs do. All right, there's a lot of things in here, and
so you're telling us that oregano oil is possibly better, works better, and has no side effects?
Yes.
Sounds amazing.
Yes, it is amazing. It is amazing. And the thing about that, a lot of times people turn their nose up to this kind of information because they're like, oh, it's not a drug. Yeah, so these natural remedies have been here for thousands of years. People have used them for thousands of years. These medications, these drugs are all new. And we're finding that these natural remedies were used for so long because they worked and they didn't have all these side effects. Now, something else that was interesting about oregano oil, it didn't cause drug resistance. This was completely opposite of an antibiotic, which causes drug resistance. If you use it over and over again, you can use oregano oils all the time.
I feel like that would make everybody's life so much easier.
It would. It would. We use oregano oil. We take drops of oregano oil, especially if we're not feeling well. If you want to boost our immune system, you can apply it topically. It's just one of the best oils. There's a lot of them out there, but oregano oil is being studied and it's working amazingly. So don't get caught in the trap of always having to run to an antibiotic when you get sick. Try these other natural remedies. They work just fine, and there's studies done on it. One thing I like to tell people is a lot of times they say they can't find a lot of studies on these natural remedies. Well, it's because it's a natural remedy. There's no real, I mean, like, if oregano oil works, we're not going to fund oregano oil. You can squeeze, you can press oregano leaves at home and make the oil. It doesn't really have the draw for funding. So you kind of have to just go off of the testimonies, off of the studies that they are doing, off of your own personal experience with these things, see if they actually work. And I'll tell you, they do. They just work. And you just, I just have to tell you, they work just fine.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, I hope that this has been helpful for you all and that these have provided some very helpful tips for you and your families to be able to apply, what things to avoid, but also what things to add to your medicine cabinet or possibly non-medicine cabinet. Please let us know in the comments what you think, if there are any other things that maybe has helped you during the season and what could also be helpful to others, because we're a community and we need each other and we need to hear each other's experiences so that we can tackle this season together. So thank you so much for joining us at SimpliWell and hope you have a very well day.
Great day. Bye.